Hello Fricom, X4 to bring you another good, bad, ugly, underrated, and overrated. This time we're going to cover the house of Ralph Lauren, the house of Polo, as it's well known for the little horsey or pony, the polo player, however you want to see it or look at it or call it. It's a brand that you can't really disregard. It's been around for a long time. It's been around for 48 years. So in 2017, this brand will be a 50-year-old brand, so nothing to joke about or to sneeze at or to snooze at, but it's a brand to be respected, and it's a brand that has had many market shares in the past few decades, as it's one of the most popular men's brand out there to date. So let's dive into the background of the company a little bit, then I'm going to give you, the rounds. I'm going to go through the purple label right here, all the way out into Supreme Leather in the corner here. So I'm going to cover all of these fragrances, a little bit of each one of them, one by one. And then at the end, as I always do, I'm going to give you the good of the brand in my eyes, the bad, the ugly, the most underrated, and the most overrated from the brand, in my opinion. Okay, so the background of the company. So Ralph Lauren is an American fashion designer known for his popular Polo line and other lines of clothing and accessories home decor. Founded in 1967, as we mentioned, and initially offering lines for men's ties, the company grew quickly in a short time span and had its own boutique within department stores in Bloomingdale's by 1969, and its own standalone store in Beverly Hills by 1971. Polo's first women's wear line was launched that same year. The brand became a staple in a preppy style popular in the late 1970s and the early 80s. And like I said, to this day, it's still a very, very renowned brand. Polo Ralph Lauren partnered with L'Oreal to introduce fragrances beginning with iconic men's scents, Polo, the classic women's fragrance Lauren in 1978, both of these releases in 1978. The next two scents in the line was Chaps for Men and Tuxedo for Women, both introduced in the following year in 1979, also became beloved classics. Designer Ralph Lauren has a total of 56 and counting fragrances in their database. All right, so no joke. Now, perfumers that have collaborated with this brand, have been such names as Alberto Morillas, Carlos Benaim, Pierre Negrin, and Dominique Ropion, just to name a few. So the brand is a really good brand, I think, that, if you like niche fragrances, you may not really appreciate this brand, but I gotta tell you, over the years, they had releases that were really staples in the fragrance world and stood the test of time, okay? And we're going to get into that in a few seconds. So let's start with Purple Label. Okay, so Purple Label is basically an oriental woody fragrance. Really, really nice fragrance. What I get out of that fragrance, that fragrance was released in 2003, and to me it's very, very reminiscent of Bun No. 9's Bleecker Street. This one's probably a little weaker than Bleecker Street in the sense that it lasts not as long, but it's a real nice fragrance. You get a beautiful blackcurrant note up top, or blackberry, some flowers in the middle, maybe some thyme with some sage, a little bit, spiciness to it, but not much. And the dry down, you're going to get some mahogany wood, oak moss, and musk. It is really nice, quite pleasant, very pleasing, great universal appeal fragrance. For a new oriental woody. I think this is really dressy and great for formal or for work scent. For that setting, it will do fantastic. Next one I'd like to cover is Polo Explorer. It has the horse right there on a cap. Doesn't have the horse in the bottle. This one here, it has been one that it's not very talked about from the line of Polo. Particularly, it's one that's probably not a crowd favorite when you talk about this brand. It's one that people kind of sleep on. Again, this is what I have, these fragrances right here. You know, I don't have the Pony collection. You know, I don't have Polo Sport Extreme, which is a pepper bomb. You know, I don't have all of them, but I have, I think, 12 offerings right here that are the ones that I kind of really appreciate from the brand and that I kind of rotate when I do feel like wearing Polo. So Polo Explorer is one of those that perhaps is a fragrance that really is slapped on, but this is a real nice woody aromatic, to be honest with you. It starts really fresh and citrus, and it starts to be enveloped by this real nice suede leather with amber, mahogany, and sandalwood creamy dry down. It is really nice. This was released, I believe, in the mid-2000s, I think 2007 if I'm not mistaken, but it's quite nice. It's not bad. Again, it's one that I'd like to wear for work. It's really professional smelling and really pleasing to the nose. Next one here is one that was my signature scent in 95, 96, and this is none other than Polo Sport. Now this here is a reformulation. If you take the cap off and you look at the sprayer or the atomizer, this is blue. The old one, it was not blue. It was the same color as the wraparound here. It was all the same color. And I believe the cap was heavier too. So, you know, this was reformulated as a lot of fragrances do, unfortunately. And unfortunately, this is not as potent as it once was. It's still extremely nice fragrance, really, really pleasant. Really pleasing to the nose. It has that universal appeal. It's very aromatic. It's very green, very fresh, you know, kind of spicy, but in the green way. And this was released in 1994. So this, like I said, was my signature scent in 95 and 96. You know, it starts off fresh and has mint, a lot of citrus up top, a little bit of lavender, but it has this, you know, a little bit of aldehydes in there. It gives us a really unique smell. And then you're going to get a lot of flowers in the center with some ginger. And then to dry down, obviously you get amber, the musk, and cedar and sandalwood, which is kind of creamy. Really nice fragrance. Really appreciate the scent. Again, it has a lot of sentimental value to me because I wore this for 2 years in a row as my signature scent in the 90s. So there's a lot of stories behind this fragrance with me in high school. Now, continuing carry on here, this is Polo Black. So Polo Black is a real nice fragrance. I believe it has a real nice note of mango in there. And it's a fragrance that I believe that, you know, in the last few years, it's probably the one that has been gotten the most attention from the latest releases. This is, again, another woody aromatic, and this was released, I believe, in 2005. And it is a very linear fragrance, to be honest with you. You have tonka beans here. You have, like I said, a note of mango, which is really unique. You have some patchouli in here, some sandalwood. You know, the citrus is prominent in there. The perfumer behind this is Pierre Negrin, which is a perfumer that I really enjoy. And this is probably, like I said, one of the best releases out there as far as you know, something that's easy to wear. It's got a little bit of a tropical vibe, but it's fruity, it's a bit sweet, not overly sweet, a little bit balsamic and powdery as it dries down, but really, really enjoyable. Great fragrance to wear, you know, in a professional setting. That's one thing that I would rate a lot of these Polo fragrances. They are very professional smelling. They're very professional smelling. They're very easy to wear and easy to please. Next one here is Polo Double Black, which nowadays, if this was released, they would probably call it Polo Extreme or something for that for that manner, because a lot of these fragrances nowadays are being released as noir or extreme or intense. So this is basically, if you want to look at it as a flanker to black and maybe something that's more intense, more it's more opulent, if you will. Now, Double Black is a woody, spicy fragrance, but it has some fresh components, but it's also warm. So it hits you from both angles. It's got coffee in there, a little bit fruity and woody as well. Not as linear as the other one. This one actually transitions, but you still have the mango and coffee up top, which is really unique, with some pepper and nutmeg. Then they're dried down. You're going to get some juniper berries, which for some people could be a little off-putting, with some cardamom and I believe some woodsy notes that are not mentioned. This is a little bit stronger, if you will. It lasts a little longer and it does transition. So for the cooler months, I think this is definitely one to check out. And again, the whole line has that professional appeal that I'm telling you about. I think that's one good word to mention, about these fragrances. And next we're going to talk about Polo Green. Now this here is not an original formulation. Unfortunately, this one here is another one that has been reformulated from the brand a few times, and they have another one that's called Modern Reserve, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. But, this has been reformulated a few times. It's nothing like it once was when it was first released. It's not as strong, as, pungent as it once was, but it's still a beast. I love Polo. It is one of my all-time favorite fragrances. When I think back, when I started wearing fragrances in the early to mid-'80s, this one here is one that I always think about. Even though this was released in 1978, it's a fragrance that I really love. This is a woody chypre. It's a really classic, traditional, manly fragrance. It's basically a tobacco bomb, if you have to think about this fragrance. It's got tobacco. It's got a real earthy, leathery feel to it. It's got juniper berries. It has mint up top, but then it has leather. It has a pepper. It has some flowers, some pine needles in there also to give it some kick. Some vetiver, tobacco, cedar, amber, and musk. I mean, it's really, really nice. It's from Carlo Benaim, which is one of my favorite noses out there. And again, this is from 1978, and this stood the test of time. This is a true classic. I believe this bottle I had here is from the early 2000s. It's still very nice. I think this is from 2002 or 2003, if I'm not mistaken, this batch right here. Quite nice, quite intriguing. Smells fantastic. If you haven't smelled this, I would, ask you to please get your nose in this. Where have you been? I mean, this has been around since 78, 35, 36 years. You definitely have to get your nose on this. All right, which brings me to the next point. This one here is one that has been discontinued. You can't really find this one anymore. This one's called Polo Crest. Polo Crest, to me, was my favorite from the lineup, up until the early 2000s or mid 2000s. It is basically a more subdued and more easier to please and easier to wear version of Polo Green, the original. So Polo Crest is a chypre that was released in 1991, rather, and it has a lot of the notes that the original has, except for it doesn't have the tobacco note in here, so it is a little easier to wear. It's still a chypre, and it is a great, great fragrance. And I think that, I wore this fragrance a lot in the early 2000s for work, for meetings, and I always got complimented. So it is a fragrance that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's probably, like I said, easier to wear. If you can get your nose in this and you don't like the pungency and the little bit animalic feel of the original, if it's too strong for you, then definitely search and try to get a bottle of this. You really will appreciate it. Next one from 2003 comes Polo Blue. Now, Polo Blue is when a lot of these companies were putting out these ozonic aquatic fragrances, and this was no different, but it was very easy to wear, and it was extremely pleasing. Great compliment getter, I have to say. If you have the opportunity to get this fragrance, definitely do. I know there's a blue spore and a I think red, white, and blue sport release. There's a couple flankers of this. This is the original from 2003. It's an aromatic fougere. You're going to get this cucumber note and this melon note enveloped by some citrus. I think there's also basil in here. And some flowers in the middle. I think geranium, musk, and then at the end, it's basically a very nice, smooth, woody, suede kind of dried down. Again, this was from Carlo Benaim, which is a great nose, and this was in fact released in 2003. Great release, really nice to wear. One of my favorites from this house. I wore this a lot in the early 2000s as well, and this is one that you should check out if you haven't. Let's talk about this one right here. This is Polo Red. This is one of the latest releases, and to be honest with you, what this reminds me of off the bat is of Versace Eros. It has that vibe. It's woody, it's spicy, it's got a ton of tonka beans in there, and it has a real cool note of cranberry up top. So it starts really beautiful. It's got cranberry citrus. It's got some saffron. I really love it. And the dry down, you're gonna get coffee, amber, and if I'm not mistaken, some wood notes. It is a little bit different. It goes a different way than Versace does. I do get tonka beans in this one, but not as strong as arrows. I think arrows could have been a little better. And to be honest with you, I like both, but I think that I like Polo Red a little bit better. I think it's easier to wear, and I like the way this transitions. The dry down is fantastic, but I truly enjoy the opening of this fragrance in the heart. The dry down, you know, it could be a little too much, so be careful, you know, with the trigger on this. But it is nice. It's a little bit loud, but for the cool days, this one here is definitely a compliment getter. I actually wore this yesterday evening, and I got a lot of compliments. So it's one that I do enjoy. And I think this year was released in 2013, so it's been around for a couple of years now. And then they released an intense version of this, which I really didn't get, which is really, you know, almost sappy sweet, like really thick and very sweet version of this, like amped up version of this that I would probably wear for like going out clubbing. You know, this one here is more of a classic sweet. The other one's a little too much for me. Next year, we're going to talk about Safari. Safari, I think, was released in '97, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Polo Safari is a true gentleman's scent. You know, when I think about Safari, I think about my dad. You know, I think about fragrances like Drakkar Noir, you know, true classic gentleman kind of fragrances. This is another woody aromatic, so they seem to put a lot of these woody, spicy, woody aromatic fragrances. That's the theme. This was actually released in 1992. I don't know who the nose was behind this fragrance, but it's quite nice. It has this very green appeal up top with some citrus, some coriander. Then it gets into this cinnamon, geranium, rose kind of heart. And the dry down is just beautiful, leathery, sandalwood, ambery with patchouli, musk, and cedar, and some vetiver and oak moss. So it is a very, very nice fragrance. It's, like I said, a true gentleman fragrance. You know, this reminds me of my father. You know, this is like a whiskey flask or cognac flask. Really beautiful. I love the crest here, you know, at the front. They did a great job with this fragrance. I think like a true classic, a true gentleman. You know, I think if you're 30 and up, and you lived in the 80s and 90s, you're probably going to appreciate this fragrance. All right. Next up here is the two latest releases. This is Supreme Oud. I believe this was released last year, 2014. Supreme Oud is a real nice oud, but if you don't like oud, this might be a little bit too much for you, I think. You know, it's actually not a really animalic oud, but the oud kind of screams in this one, okay? This is an oriental, woody, spicy, I would say. The oud and the cinnamon here are really prominent. What you get with this is you get some red pepper up top with some cinnamon. Then the heart is really strong with the wood, you know, with the oud accord. And then the dry down, you're gonna get some Gaiac wood and vetiver. Now the combination, again, it's Carlo Benaim, which is my favorite noses. I do enjoy what he did with this fragrance, and I think that, you know, this was actually released early 2015. It was late last year, early this year. I truly like this fragrance. You know, I think that from the ouds out there, if you want something that's a little bit strong but not too much, you know, and you want to get into oud, I think this is the way to go because it's still really nice. It's going to give you a tremendous dry down, and it'll get you compliments. Just go easy on the trigger. This could be a little bit pungent, so just be careful with that. And I wouldn't wear this in the hot weather. And now leather, the Supreme Leather, which is the latest release, which came on this 2015 fall, I think it's an easier version of that. What I get out of this one, Viktor & Rolf Spice Bomb. It's in that vein, in that vicinity, in that genre kind of fragrance. But I actually like this one a little bit more, to be honest with you. I think this one here is a little bit underrated. I think people haven't really tried this fragrance. Now, understand that this here was released, you know, just like the oud, for about $125 at Bloomingdale's, an exclusive fragrance. But you know, you can find this for better prices right now. I've seen this started to pop up as a discounted fragrance. So I would definitely check this out if you can. The notes with this one here is basically, you're gonna get like a real nice suede, soft leather fragrance. But it has some cardamom, some nutmeg, some saffron, and some honey. So, you know, it's not many notes, but the notes it has, it's really well blended. And it'll give you a real nice, smooth leather kind of feel, semi-sweet, that I think would do wonders in the wintertime. I do enjoy this fragrance a lot. Like I said, it's like Histoire de Parfum, you know, Hemingway or Spice Bomb. That's what I get out of this. a little smoother, a little softer, if you will. So another thing I wanted to mention to you guys before I get into the good, bad, and the ugly, I do have other good, bad, ugly, underrated, and overrated reviews. If you'd be kind enough to check those, I think this is like my number 10. I have Tom Ford, L'Artisan Parfumeur, Joop, Thierry Mugler, Jean-Paul Gaultier, Yves Saint Laurent, Chanel, the House of Creed, and Amouage were the other good, bad, and the ugly full reviews that I've done. So check those out if you will, and let me know your thoughts on those. And let's go on with the continuation of this one. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly, the underrated, and the overrated of this house. Stay tuned, it's coming up right now. So the good for me, in my opinion, it has to go to Polo Green or Ralph Lauren's Polo, which was the original release in 1978. The reason why this to me is the, good from the brand, this is an epitome of a classic. This is a timeless piece. You got to think about something that was released in 1978 and it's still great and one of the top sellers today. You can't disregard. Definitely check this one out. It's got that traditional, feel, but it's definitely great. If it stood the test of time, it's because it's doing something right. So Polo Green is definitely the good. The bad, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Polo Sport. And the reason why, it was reformulated and it's so weak. I get about 3 or 4 hours out of this. In the old one, I used to get 6 to 8. So it's unfortunate. It's very weak, not as great as it once was. The scent is there, but the performance is that much weaker that it has to be the bad, in my opinion. Now, the ugly, it's going to go to this one right here, which is Explorer. It is nice, but for what it's good for, I think there's a lot of other fragrances in the market that would do the job better. So because the smell is not that unique and it doesn't give me, that great of a performance, I would have to rate this one as the ugly of the brand. Right now, I would have to say that the latest release, Supreme Leather, it's very underrated right now. And if you haven't tried it, please do. Even though, like I said, it has nuances of, Hemingway, from Histoire de Parfum or Spice Bomb, it has enough that it does its own thing and it's quite nice. For the cool days, it's going to give you a real good performance and it's going to smell really nice. So I think this is really underrated right now, and I would say try this if you can. I think you might be surprised. And the most overrated in my world, from the people I know and from what I've seen, everybody has this, or had this at some point. This is Polo Black. I think Polo Black, unfortunately, to me, is the most, overrated. I think that, especially from my world, like I said, everybody and their mother has this fragrance or had this fragrance, whether they got it for a gift or whatever. This fragrance here, just Polo Black was a fragrance that I just saw it so much out there. It is nice, but it was a fragrance that, it was kind of common, especially in the professional world. A lot of people were wearing this in the past few years. So I think this is the most overrated for me from the house of Polo. So I enjoy this video. Again, this was my rendition of Polo's good, bad, ugly, underrated, and overrated. So again, to recap, Polo Green or Polo Ralph Lauren or Ralph Lauren's Polo, the original 1978 is the good. The bad goes to Polo Sport. The ugly goes to Polo Explorer. The most underrated to me is Supreme Leather right now. And the most overrated, I'd say, Polo Black. So this was it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please continue to follow the channel. Drop your comments down below. I'd love to hear. Be curious to know which ones are your favorites from this brand, which ones you don't like from this brand. Let me know your top 3 favorites from this brand. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. This was Max Forte with another Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.